Welcome back. You're listening to Coyote Radio from Cal State San Bernardino. I am Coyote Radio station manager Laci Kendall. Monday is Purple Day globally. And Purple Day is the day when the world takes a moment to recognize the topic of epilepsy and become a little bit more aware of it. We are delighted that once a year, a member of our own family here at Cal State San Bernardino comes back, Meghan Kennedy, and brings with us some very interesting people to make us all a little bit more aware of epilepsy. We're doing that today, and next up on the program we have Diane Wilkins. You just heard a few words from her daughter, Laci Wilkins, talking about what it's like to have epilepsy, and it's always been a thought of mine. It must be extremely scary to be the mom of a little baby, a 2-year-old child, as she pointed out to us, as she was when she had her first seizure. And I wanted you, if you would, first I want to welcome you to the program, Diane, but I wanted to...
Thank you, Laci.
Yeah. Wanted to find out a little bit about what that must have been like. Will you share that?
Well, you know, Laci was diagnosed at 2 years old, and I'll never forget when she was laying in bed and not moving, and my first instinct was, you know, shake her a little blue, and she wasn't responding, and we lived right across the street from the hospital. Mm-hmm. So I took her over to the hospital, and they looked at me and said, there's nothing wrong with your daughter. She's fine, you know. Mm-hmm. Send her home. Same thing happens a few hours later, and I run to the hospital, and then they tell me, are you a first mother? Is this the first time?
Oh, they thought you were overreacting.
Yeah, overreacting. But we did get her diagnosed. She did have seizures and has epilepsy.
And what was that like when they very first told you, we believe your daughter has epilepsy?
Kind of more like denial.
Yeah.
I think denial. Mm-hmm. And then when it really hit, there's no way to explain it. I mean, to sit there and to watch and not know when the next seizure is going to come, it's terrifying. Mm-hmm. And I would love to say it got easier, but it really never did. No.
That's always your little girl.
Yeah, exactly.
And your husband, how's he handled that?
Well, we were divorced.
Mm-hmm. So it's been you and Laci.
Yeah, it's been Laci and her little sister, who helped a lot taking care of Laci.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
So
you made your younger child, you made her aware of the situation right from the gate.
Right, had to.
Yeah.
Working mom, single. I remember there was days, you know, I had to pull her out of school to bring her home to watch her big sister, you know. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it was very difficult. Mm-hmm.
And so there must have been a process there where you said, I've got to make myself more aware. I've got to learn everything I can about this.
Oh, absolutely. And I wish I would have started earlier, but it was so hard. Mm-hmm. You know, Laci spent a lot of time in the hospitals. Her seizures were poorly controlled. Mm-hmm. So, and she has what's called status epilepsy. So when she starts seizing, she doesn't stop. She goes into one right after another. Mm. So it was, you know, calling the paramedics or, you know, rushing her to the hospital where they would hook her up to an IV and, you know, put Ativan or Valium in her to slow it down.
Well, Laci said one of her comments was that it's not as popular as cancer. We don't talk about it as much, and people aren't as aware of it. I know that when a member of your family gets cancer, there are cancer support groups. So you're a scared mom. You got a little girl who's got epilepsy now, and you're terrified. Do they have groups where you could gather with other moms?
You know, back then they didn't. Oh. And it was very difficult where we had to start them. And where we live now in Palm Desert, we're just starting up ones. But for parents, I really believe, you know, that is so important, knowledge and support, because that's the key.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get to some of the knowledge. Meghan, can you pull that mic so it's between you and Diane?
Okay.
And I got some, again, I did some research.
Yay!
Okay. And I found the most common myths that people have about epilepsy. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to let you guys take turns responding to these, okay? Number one. Myth number one. You can swallow your tongue during a seizure.
No, you can't.
No?
No.
Okay. So what you
want to do, I mean, it's not, the biggest thing is you just don't want to have the tongue block your airway. It's not, you're going to swallow it, but you want to make sure, and that's why when someone's on the ground having a seizure, you want to turn them on their side. Turn them
on their side. Let's say that again. Turn them on their side.
Turn them on their side.
Should I turn them on their side?
You should turn them on their side. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Good deal. So you can't swallow your tongue, but you
don't want it to block the airway. You want to keep the airway open. That's why you're turning them on their side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Myth number 2. You can catch epilepsy from somebody else. It's contagious.
Absolutely not.
No? I can't get epilepsy from somebody else?
Absolutely not.
Okay. Enough said on that one. Myth number 3. People with epilepsy are disabled and can't work. Laci, you want to reflect on that?
No, as long as you put your mind to it and don't let the epilepsy take control of you, it is possible you can still work.
So that's a myth. No truth to any of these. Okay, myth number 4. People with epilepsy look different. Maybe you can tell one in a crowd because they have a certain look.
Well, how many people do you walk by every day that look like they have epilepsy?
I work at a college campus. I see some nutty-looking kids all day long.
Well, like I said, 1 in 100 people have epilepsy. There's no way to tell unless someone's having the seizure right in front of you. So.
Right. Very good. Okay. And myth number 5: epilepsy is a form of mental illness.
Not.
Epilepsy, and I'll tell you what I found in my research because I want to comment on that. Epilepsy is an umbrella term that covers about 20 different types of seizure disorders. It is a functional physical problem. It doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with mental illness.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything. I mean, I can't say it doesn't have anything to do with a mental illness because I'm sure there's people out there who have mental illness who have epilepsy.
Sure.
But just because you have epilepsy doesn't mean you have a mental illness.
Yeah. All right. And myth number 6, with today's medication, epilepsy is a largely solved problem.
What would you say, Laci?
I say not really, because not very many people are aware of epilepsy. So it's hard to say it's aware of. There's nothing really.
The medications. She's had been very poorly controlled by medications.
Yeah.
But there is out there.
There is medication, and there are things we can do about it. There is brain surgery for some folks, but these things they just help people in the fringes, so to speak.
Right.
Some people are lucky.
Add to what Laci said here, and it's, with the people who have epilepsy, 50% get full control through treatment. Another about 25 to 30% get partial control.
Yeah.
And then there's that remaining 20 to 25% that don't get control no matter what type of treatment they've tried. So pretty much everyone with epilepsy is going through some form of treatment. It's a chronic disorder because you're taking medications daily. You're always having to be aware of your lifestyle and what you're doing to make sure that, you don't do something that'll cause you to have a seizure and everything. But yeah, needless to say, even though it's under control for a lot of people, it's still there.
Yeah. Okay. So let's walk through this before we close here. Let's walk through. If I am in a classroom at school here, or I'm in the supermarket and I'm aware of somebody in front of me and they're having an epileptic seizure, how can I help them? What can I do to really make things easier for them?
It depends on the kind of seizure. As I said, if it's a tonic-clonic seizure where they're jerking and convulsing, jerking and stiffening, like I said, the biggest thing is turn them on their sides. Put something under their heads. I say even, if you don't have a pillow or a coat, use your legs. I know my thighs have plenty of padding on them. And I'd rather get a bruise on my thighs than have that person's head hitting the concrete.
Okay,
and
protect their head.
Protect their head. And then you just have to let the seizure take its course. In most cases, you are not going to need to call 911. In cases like with Laci where it's status, where it's one seizure after another, they say if the seizures are repetitive, then you do want to call 911. If the seizures are lasting more than 5 minutes, you want to call 911. If someone's pregnant or there's some other issue going on, or you don't know if they have epilepsy, you call 911. But if you know if they have epilepsy, it's pretty much guaranteed that by the time 911 arrives, they're going to be out of epilepsy and into what they call a post-ictal state and everything, and the paramedics won't be able to do anything when they could have been out helping someone else.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's not to say you never call 911, but most times you're not going to need to. One myth you didn't bring up before is people tend to think that you still need to put something in someone's mouth. You do not do that.
Okay.
I'm surprised you didn't bring that myth up before.
Yeah, that is a good one. I want to ask you one that I didn't, in all my research, this didn't come up, but I mentioned I had this friend of mine, Billy, who rented a room. Billy, when he had a seizure a couple of times, I was there, and first thing I did was I helped him sit down. Okay, because I could tell it was coming on. He did the thing that you mentioned. He would wiggle his hands in a funny way, and I was aware. Oh, he's going into a seizure. So I tried to sit him down, and I would talk to him very calmly, and I'd say, "It's all right. You're just having a seizure." Was I doing anything good there? Does that really make a difference?
I don't know if I can't say it doesn't not hurt. It's one of those things where with my aura. When I would have seizures, I would just let someone know. Yeah. And first thing I would do would be sit down, because I did have tonic-clonic for 1 year, but mostly I have the complex partial, which you treat those a little differently. In those cases, people tend to wander around. The biggest thing in those cases, and as Laci mentioned before, people get arrested and people think they're drunk. It does get mistaken for drunkenness. But with the complex partial, when someone's, having the seizure and they're, doing a little picking at their clothes, they call it automatisms. Yeah. And then, like I said, in my case, it's the weird hand gestures. You just have to let it take its course. Don't stop them from doing what they're doing. Unless, of course, they're about to do something like walk. If I'm about to walk into a bus, please stop me. Yeah. Okay. But just.
You got it.
Yeah. Otherwise, just, stay with me. Keep talking calmly. Because, hey, when I am coming out and I'm more aware, the fact that someone's there talking, calmly to me helps me. It might not be the same for everyone. I can only talk about for me. Yeah. But the biggest thing is stay with them and don't let them do something that's going to hurt themselves.
Gotcha. In the 2 minutes we have left, if anyone listening needs some more information. I wanted you to share that very quickly because we do have time for that. Then I want you folks to give us some information on where we can find out a little bit more.
Yeah, biggest thing is with Purple Day, want to do a big shout out to Cassidy Meghan in Canada. Just a quick history here for everyone. Okay. She started this when she was only 8 or 9 years old back in 2008 by writing her parliament members because, like Laci, she was having problems in school. Wow. Encouraging them to wear purple on March 26th. And in less than 4 years, it has gone global. So give a big shout out to Cassidy Meghan out there.
Cassidy Meghan.
And of course, I love that last name. Hey.
There's a lot of that going on here today.
Yeah, there is. We have a lot of name sharing here. Yeah. But there's a lot of people out there, Laci, Cassidy, myself, many people I know out there who are out there advocating for epilepsy, working with organizations such as the Epilepsy Foundation of America. And one of my board members, in fact, we're getting a local organization started, Epilepsy Education Everywhere. One of my board members, Anita, found this quote the other day, and this shows you how we need to raise awareness. This is from Dr. Jerome Engel, Jr. According to the World Health Organization, the global burden of epilepsy is the same as that of breast or lung cancer. It's a major health burden, more common than muscular dystrophy, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis put together. Wow. But there's no Jerry Lewis to do a telethon. Leprosy has been destigmatized. Cancer has been destigmatized. Epilepsy hasn't been. So that shows you that we do need to be more aware. We have come a long way. As a librarian, I'm doing my own research. I'm researching a place called Craig Colony. There were colonies for epilepsy less than 100 years ago. Wow. Here in the U.S. So we have come a long way. But we still have a long way to go. Yeah. And destigmatized. My recent research brought me across an article called Epilepsy in the Twitter Era. And it turns out that a group of professors up in, I believe it's called Dalhousie University in Canada. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, if anyone from Canada is listening here. But it turns out that they focused their research on tweets. How many people out there tweet today? So this is a current thing, tweeting. And out of the seizure-related tweets, 41% were derogatory in nature, and that is in today's society. So we need to raise awareness.
We do.
We need to encourage everyone out there to wear purple on March 26th.
Okay.
You know, we need to have people go out there and learn something new about epilepsy, know what to do and what not to do, not to be afraid of it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that everyone can do, but the biggest thing is to raise awareness and not be afraid, so that everyone with epilepsy, you know, isn't afraid to talk about it.
Exactly. And right here, right now is a good place to start destigmatizing it. And everybody needs to learn a little bit more. Well, for those of you that joined us here today, we're glad you were listening. For those three delightful ladies that are sitting across from me, Laci Wilkins, Diane Wilkins, and Meghan Kennedy, we're delighted that you came here to share your stories with us and make us all a little bit smarter about epilepsy in light of Monday, which is Global Purple Day.
And did you need places for people to go and
I do indeed. I do indeed. While I'm figuring out what purple outfit I'm going to wear on Monday, I want you to share with us where we can get more information.
So a few places you can go. Of course, there's purpleday.org. See if there's something going on in your area. In fact, Laci, you want to say really quick the Starbucks where you're going to be at?
I live in Palm Desert, California, and all the Starbucks in the desert will be wearing purple, and Monterey Country Club and an Albertson Shopping Center will be having a setup there. You'll have coffee and get literature and more information. If you need any information, please come and join us.
Good deal.
But purpleday.org will tell you if there's things in your area. You can search for things around the country, whether it be a walk, a booth, whatever's going on. You can go ahead and go to, of course, epilepsy.org. You can also find Epilepsy Education everywhere on Facebook.
Yep.
That's our local organization. There's the EFA.org, Epilepsy Foundation of America, and Anita Kaufman Foundation, AKFUS.org. There's many others out there, but that's a few to get some of you started out there. And, of course, you know,
research.
Check with your local librarian.
Yeah. We love our librarians around here. We love this one in particular. Meghan, thank you for joining us today and for bringing your delightful friends. You've been listening to a discussion on epilepsy here on Coyote Radio. Thanks for joining us.